from our power. Consider the way that North American Jews discuss our holidays. You know, there's a joke that every Jewish holiday has the same plot. They tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. And there's a reason that people laugh at that joke, and that's because that's the way we retell the story of our holidays. So you ask most North American Jews about Purim, which is my daughter's favorite holiday because it brings together two of the things in the world that she loves the most: dress up and pastries. You ask North American Jews about Purim, and they'll say, oh sure, I know the story of Purim, sure. Haman tried to kill the Jews of Persia, but Esther and her uncle Mordecai rose up valiantly and saved the Jews of Persia, and then, well, the story is really over, and then we eat our hamantaschen, which are really delicious. But that's not the way the book of Esther ends. The book of Esther doesn't just end with Jewish survival. It ends with the Persian king Ahasuerus giving Mordecai the right to take revenge on Haman's people, and the Jews killing 75,000 souls. It ends, in the other words, not with survival, but with power, with a very troubling act of Jewish power, an act about which our tradition has much to say, and yet we don't talk about that. Or consider the way that North American Jews discuss the holiday of Hanukkah, which is my son's favorite holiday because it brings together two of the things that he loves most in the world: warfare and presents. We say, the Syrian Greeks wouldn't let us practice Judaism, but the Maccabee family rose up and defeated them and restored Jewish sovereignty and rededicated the temple, and the oil lasted for 8 days, which was a miracle, and then, well, really the story is over, and we eat our latkes and sufganiyot, and it's just really wonderful. But why do we end the story there? The Maccabees became the Hasmonean dynasty, the last experiment in Jewish sovereignty before our own time. It was a very troubled experience. It's one of the reasons the rabbis didn't like Hanukkah very much, because they knew what the Hasmonean dynasty had become. But we don't talk about that for the same reason we don't talk about the internal threats to Israel's democratic future, because we don't have a language to talk about the ethical responsibilities of Jewish power. And it is this failure to talk about Jewish power, to engage with what our tradition has to say about what comes after victimhood and survival, that helps explain, I think, why so many of the smartest young North American Jewish kids feel so disengaged from their organizational leaders over Israel. Because these kids have had a fundamentally different life history than their parents and grandparents. They've never seen North American Jews as a weak, marginal, oppressed minority. To the contrary, they see Jews as among the most privileged and powerful communities in North America. They've never seen wars like 1948 or 1967 or 1973, when Israel seemed like it might be overrun by its Arab neighbors. To the contrary, they've grown up with Israel as a regional superpower, armed with nuclear weapons. They've never known an Israel that did not occupy the West Bank. And so it is precisely what our tradition has to say about Jewish power that could be most relevant to them if we ever talked about it. I think we need to tell young North American Jews that as the generation growing up in an age of unprecedented Jewish power, they have been tasked by Jewish history with a very special obligation. During our long night of powerlessness, Jews spun visions of human dignity and social justice that inspired the world. But it is only now, in this age, that we can learn the true meaning of those ethical visions. Because if the Jewish tradition of